DreamWorks has always tried to be different to Disney. I mean, even before Shrek, their very first few pictures, The Prince of Egypt, Road to El Dorado and Joseph King of Dreams, are very adult orientated compared to the bright dreams of childhood hope that are produced at the Walt Disney Company. But it really came to light just how different DreamWorks was upon the release of their first huge success, Shrek. A film that not only was different to Disney, but actually went out of its way to mock it. And not only that, it did it with computer animation, a world that Disney had dared not to tread yet. And so, with its huge popularity, of course a sequel had to be made, Up Next, which hit it out the park yet again, with more jokes, better writing, and even brand new characters, including the one and only Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots became an instant sensation with the incredible voice acting of Antonio Banderas and his over-the-top nature, which fit perfectly into the Shrek universe, despite, fun fact, being the only core Shrek character to actually be from a fairy tale. But the most important thing for DreamWorks was he was winning a lot of hearts with that adorable little face of his. I mean, look at him. And all that popularity helped him gain his very own spin-off movie, joining the likes of Hobbs & Shaw, The Minions, and of course, the extremely popular TV show, Joey, which absolutely everyone loved and no one had any issues with. But when 2011 rolled around and everyone waited in bated breath for the Puss in Boots movie to finally release, it turned out to be fine. Yep, kinda just fine. I mean, I watched it a few weeks before going to see The Last Wish, and it's not bad, but it's certainly not great either. It kind of lacks a bit of the Shrek comedy. Teaming up with Humpty Dumpty, of all people, was kind of strange, and altogether, it was just one of those spin-offs. Did it need to be made? Probably not, but it's kind of just there now. And that, along with a disappointing third Shrek film and a fourth film where Puss is kind of just a joke, left the cat with claws with nowhere left to go. I mean, there was plans for a sequel called Puss in Boots 2, 9 Lives and 40 Thieves, but after development hell, it was kind of just left to rot, with incredible films choosing over it, like Boss Baby and Boss Baby 2, with our boot-wearing hero only getting a weird Netflix series instead. Which, like, what did Netflix have over DreamWorks? There was like 50 of these weird series DreamWorks seemed to make. To my knowledge, none of them are any good. Anyway, that was all until 2018, where head of Illuminations Chris Meldandry was tasked with making both Shrek 5 and Puss in Boots 2, hiring Joel Crawford and Mark Swift as director and producer, and fireworks were made. Puss in Boots 2, The Last Wish is incredible, which is actually the first time I've said the full title in this review of that movie. But anyway, it is perfect. The story's great, the animation is inspired, the small quirks are fabulous. This feels like what the first Puss in Boots movie should have been, completely beyond the Shrek movies while still respecting them and referencing them. It's a fun time, it's a funny time, it's a fantastic time. And as someone who's just watched it because for some reason they decided to release it 2 months later in the UK, I can fully say the hype lived up to expectations. This movie delivers and then some. But what I find most interesting is just how different it is. How it goes back to the past of DreamWorks' first ideology, be different, to Disney. Let's start with the animation, mixing 3D with traditional hand-drawn, because as an audience, let's be honest, this animation style really is it. Ever since Into the Spider-Verse, more and more films are beginning to take on this wonderful style, and it is fantastic. With this being the second DreamWorks hit to use it, with the first being the other great film from last year, The Bad Guys. And what's more important is each movie makes it their own. It's unique enough from the other film to stand out, and most importantly, it makes each and every action scene just that much better. I mean, even from the start, the scene reintroducing us to Puss and just how incredibly awesome he is just gives out excellence, with its movement and quick pace, which matches perfectly with the song that's honestly been in my head all week. But nothing can compare with each and every scene Death is in. The power, the menace that he gives off, not just as a character, but as a fighter as well, is incredible. But I have to get back to him later. For now, let's focus on why this animation takes DreamWorks up a notch. Just like all the way back in 2001 when Shrek was released, DreamWorks has seen another animation style being used and gone, that looks incredible and better than what was before, let's use it. Which is exactly unlike Disney, where once again we're seeing the big mouse lack urgency. They continue to make hand-drawn animations despite the emergence of Pixar and DreamWorks all the way back then, so I wonder if despite the popularity of this film and Into the Spider-Verse, they might not act up again and be left behind. Now, let's change to the characters, because this film is rich with them. Puss is once again phenomenal, and perhaps even better than when he's first introduced, now becoming this legendary hero figure with too much confidence. Kitty Softpaws is also back, and once again proves to be a very good romantic interest for the Mr. In Boots. And Pietro is not actually an annoying side comic relief character, which I thought was going to happen. It's kind of amazing how the film makes you feel so much for him and wanting to get his happily ever after of friendship. But truly the film shines with its villains, and I've already talked about one of them already, so let's start with the others. First we have the mainly advertised as the main villains, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, which up until I started getting pictures of Death posted on my Twitter timeline every 2 minutes, I fully thought they were our only villains, but thank God they're not, because the way they go about the film and their story is awesome, with Goldilocks clearly wanting her own real family and then slowly realising that she's already got one, even if the just bit right did get a tiny bit annoying. I'd also like to award them the funniest characters of the film. I really thought they were hilarious, which is kind of controversial given that Big Jack Horner seems to be a lot of people's favourite, and let me just say, he is wonderful. It's extremely amazing to have a villain just be a villain for villain's sake. That's a lot of villains there. Once again, the film even makes multiple references to this, with the Jiminy Cricket character being a big favourite, along with the whole evil backstory of him having a good childhood. And then this completely rivals the Disney latest film, Strange World, which literally has a scene mocking the fact there's no big villain in the movie, completely missing the point that we really just wanted a big bad villain that's bad for badness sake. But finally we arrive at Death's door, like we always do. This character's design is terrifying, his voice is terrifying, his whistle is terrifying. Everything about this is terrifying, and that's exactly how it should feel. He's dangerous, he is deaf, and the fact he's a wolf, is perfect, Puss's cat, but also the fact he looks sort of like a skeleton Grim Reaper, that's wonderful. I'd literally watching the film, I was like, oh my god, he does look like he's meant to be the Grim Reaper with his white design and red eyes and so on. His quick and powerful movements and everything about him is just so cool. I've seen people call him the greatest villain that DreamWorks has ever made, which is actually kind of high praise, but he's more than that. He feels like death, and getting that feeling is incredible and very important to this film. This story is about death. It's about the fear of death, and Puss in Boots, a character that saw himself as an invincible god with 9 lives. It's perfect. He gets launched from this very untouchable hero to someone exactly like us, the audience. Durable, weak, fragile, and to make him very human, and that focus on him becoming sort of human is genius. It makes him relatable so much, and it gives the film a dark undertone, which is, it's definitely a kids film, but once again going back to DreamWorks' origins of being heavy movies, where Disney's getting a lot darker with stories of generational abuse and so on, but DreamWorks has gone blow to blow with them in this film. We watch a film partly about death, one that deals with panic attacks and running away from your issues. That isn't the answer. Instead, you've got to make memories. You have one life and you have to live it well. There's something so beautiful about that message that so many pieces of media try to put across and often fail. The Last Wish doesn't fail. It is a fun, brilliantly written, animated and produced film that deserves everything that's coming its way. If you haven't watched it yet, definitely do so. You won't be disappointed.